around and like try to set your house on fire.
I sat beside a little girl in church on Sunday. She,
You better be.
oh, she,
All right, it is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025, Richland County Board of Commissioners now in session. I'm Commissioner Vero, joined by Commissioner Banks, Senior Clerk Stacy Crawl, Carl Hunnels, partial upgrade Hicken Gray, engaged citizen and all-around good guy Jeff Parton, and our County Administrator Andrew Keller. We'll get into our scheduled items. Motion to certify the record of proceedings for September 18th, 2025. Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
yes,
Motion to approve requisitions.
no move.
Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes,
Okay, continued work improvements, capital improvements in our jail. We have a request to approve a quote from Equiparts for jail supplies. It's a bevy of parts, if we may, for a total of 2,480.80. Motion to approve.
motion made.
Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Okay, motion to approve resignation of a Dayspring of employee effective 9/19/2025.
So made.
Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes,
All right, next up, we have a request from our common pleas judges, Ohio Revised Code. Gives commissioners the authority to set mileage reimbursement rate for witnesses who request it. Currently, we only pay 20 cents per mile. They're asking that we increase the mileage to the standard reimbursement rate under the feds, which is, what's that?
The rate is in accordance with ORC.
I'm sorry, ORC, apologize.
More than that, I heard.
Yep. It's for 50.5 cents. I think that's pretty reasonable. May we have that motion?
I will make that motion.
Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes,
All right, next up, we have a utility permit application. It's from AEP and they're simply going to be installing a new utility pole on 5751 West Smiley, which is County Road 57. May we have a motion to approve? Second,
Commissioner Vero,
yes.
Commissioner Banks.
yes.
All right, did we receive the electrical aggregation contract?
Not yet,
So how do you want to handle that?
but we have to wait until it gets here.
So we'll hope it gets here between now and the end of our session this morning?
Right? If not, we're gonna have to reconvene to get it done.
I discuss.
Okay, Hayden, any questions until we come back at 10 o'clock with Investment Advisory Board? All right, we will recess at 9:33. Okay, your Richmond County Board of Commissioners are now at session. At this time, I would like to recess again. And now we're going to open up our Investment Advisory Board meeting. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the camera, if you will.
Jim McCourt with Meter Public Funds.
And we have our treasurer, Bart Hamilton, here.
Hi, folks.
Daryl, myself, and Bart make up the county's Investment Advisory Committee. Just a little bit of brief overview.
I mentioned it. Andy's here too.
Oh, wait a minute. There's Slag Ginty. I didn't see him back there. So, Andy McGinty with our, treasurer's office, deputy treasurer's here. Just a little bit of update, looking at, county's interest earnings, from their investments where we appear to be up about 2.21% from this time last year, which is good. Bart and I had, some discussion last year on budgeting time about coming up to 3.8. If you recall,
I believe it's 3.826267.
we're gonna get there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So remember, you didn't want to come up that much. We got another 100,000 out of you.
Yeah, and I think that 26267 was to make a number, if I remember right.
So, Jim, you think we'll get to the 3.8 we've budgeted?
Oh, dear.
Yeah. 4 months to go.
You probably will, yeah. With one arm tied behind.
That's good news. Obviously, you want to be conservative in your estimates, but if the taxpayers reviewed our budget, it looks like we'll meet that number. And we'll turn it over to Bart and Jim.
Thanks, Tony. Well, as of August 31st, we're at 3,671,059.54, which is great. And we're well on track. That's through August. Our rate of return right now is 3.61%, and our average maturity is 2.5 years. Turn it over to our. Got a great report.
Yeah.
He's gonna summarize for us and not make us go through all of it.
Thanks, Treasurer. And I'll elaborate on that income projection in just a second, but Bart also thought it would be a good time for me to come here to talk to you in person, just because we did have somewhat of an eventful week last week with the Fed cutting rates for the first time in 2025. So after a couple of years of aggressively raising rates in 22 and 3, and then we saw the first cut last year at the end of 2024 when the Fed moved rates, short-term rates lower by a full percentage point in the last quarter of 2024. So far this year, they had done nothing yet, and rates had been at that target range of 4.25% to 4.5%. And the question had been when they would resume these cuts. And now I think the more important question is going to be how much further they will go. So the market had pretty well baked in this first cut. Was no surprise to the market at all that we got this first quarter point cut last week. Like I said, I think now that the question is the degree to how much they'll continue and how quickly they'll do that. So right now, expectations are that we will get likely 2 more cuts this year with only 2 Fed meetings remaining. The market's pricing in about a 90% probability of another one at the next meeting at the end of October, and then about a 75% probability of an additional cut at the last meeting of the year in December. And so I've got a few slides on the market in here, but I'll just touch on a couple. When you're looking at page 4, this is that future pricing of what investors are currently expecting based on data that we know right now. And we know this can certainly change, and it does over time, but based on what the market's expecting at the current time, looking at where rates might be by the end of this year with the orange line in 2025, suggesting a couple more cuts coming this year, and then a few more throughout 2026 to get in the range of somewhere around 3%, which I think the Fed generally considers to be more of a neutral stance on monetary policy by the end of next year. So what that would practically affect most immediately for the county is short-term investments like Star Ohio, for instance, which run like a money market fund, which for the last couple of years has been so good on generating short-term investment income because it's been very high with the Fed funds rate being very high. If the Fed does continue to cut rates, which is still an if, but if they do, Star Ohio, other short-term rates like that will go down pretty much in lockstep with where the Fed does go. On the other hand, market yields Well, there might be some correlation in where yields out in 2, 3, 4, 5 years go. They can act a little bit more independently. So if investors are viewing whatever their view is on inflation and on growth in the economy, that could affect longer term rates. I'll flip a couple more slides to show you these yields, market yields. On page 8, this is showing essentially of the portion of the curve that the county can invest in. So you can buy bonds. You're restricted to fixed income bonds that you can buy by Ohio Revised Code and by the county's investment policy, generally out to 5 years. So this shows you over the last couple of decades where that average 5-year treasury rate has been. And for the last couple of decades, for the most part, really since the great financial crisis in 08-09, we've had very, very low yields across most of the market. These last few years, however, have been an exception. We've had this environment where we've had rates in between 4 and 5% for the last couple of years that we've been trying to build into the county's portfolio to lock in these rates. When you buy a 5-year bond at whatever rate, it's locked in. You hold that bond at that rate till maturity, regardless of what the market does in the meantime. And so now that we're at this point of the Fed starting to lower rates and the market anticipating that's likely going to happen, you have a lot of very nice yields locked into the portfolio that you've been buying over the last couple of years. The treasurer has been contributing excess funds to the portfolio, even though Star Ohio has been so attractive and it's tough to give up that really good short-term yield that you've had in there. The idea has been to lock these rates into the longer part of the portfolio to insulate yourself or protect
So
yourself.
does that mean for 2026, where we can expect to have some good returns come budget season then?
We're gonna do a fantastic job.
That's a good segue. So
That recording, Greg, when we do budgeting, and he gives us about a $1 million revenue projection on interest. Did you get that recorded?
I wasn't on, but you can hear his voice.
Okay, good.
You know, the funny thing,
That for the minutes too.
is the market goes down a lot quicker than it goes up.
Oh, look, he's already backtracking. Back.
Let's just always keep that one in mind.
So if you flip to the next one, page 10, that's where we'll show the county's investment portfolio. So this is as of the end of August. And we report on both the Star Ohio balance. Meter, our firm, acts as the investment advisor and the administrator for Star Ohio. So we pull this balance into your reporting as well, that 22 million you see there, which essentially acts as your primary liquidity reserve for daily operating expenses. You have a bank account, and then you have Star Ohio to use as backup liquidity for operating expenses of the county. Then you have that securities portfolio, which is what we are managing more on a daily basis. This is the all securities held in third-party safekeeping at U.S. Bank. So we're not touching those securities, but we're making the investment decisions on that. So that balance of 118 million for a total portfolio of investments of a little over 141 million. Breaking that down further, when you look at the securities, you have a bunch of different individual bonds in that portfolio. When you look at the weighted average maturity of each of those bonds, it's right at about 2.5 years. And we're trying to maintain that duration because every day, every bond you own gets a day closer to maturity. So we're always fighting an aging process of the portfolio. So we're either trying to take those maturities and generally move them out longer, reinvesting them out toward that 5-year target, or at times even taking bonds prior to maturity and selling them and moving them out longer to try to, again, maintain that duration of the portfolio. When you look at that weighted average yield of 3.61%, that's every bond in the portfolio, again, has an estimated yield that you'll earn if you hold it to maturity. When you look at that all on a weighted average basis, that's been on a steady climb these last couple of years as we've been in this higher rate market, and we've been sort of shuffling out older bonds that were bought at much lower yields coming out of the pandemic and now reinvesting them into higher yields that have been in the market for the last couple of years. So looking at that one step further, on that maturity distribution on the bottom of the page, we have your portfolio broken down into annual buckets, how that 118 million is invested out to that 5-year maturity spectrum. When you look at the line graph that overlays it, that's the average yield within each of those annual buckets. And so the thing to point out there is that when you go look at all of your securities that you have locked in beyond 2 years, all of those are locked in at rates well above 4%. On the other hand, the 0 to 1 year, the bonds you have maturing over the next year, still are coming out at an average of about 244. And at this point, you're still able to reinvest into this market for the time being, at least somewhere between 3.5% and 4%. So you're still rolling out lower yields, still going higher. So even though the Fed is in a cutting environment and rates are generally moving lower, especially on the short part of the yield curve, that weighted average yield of this portfolio still has some room to go higher. So I would expect over this next year, that's going to climb somewhere into that 380-ish range. And then the idea is to be able to keep it there for as long as possible. If we're in a lower market environment by then, your portfolio is going to be protected against that. You have all these longer yields locked in at these higher rates, and you'll be insulated for a while against that lower move. And I'll talk in just a second about what that means for income. But before I move on, the last thing is this on the asset allocation, the pie chart in the top right corner. These are the different types of investments, types of asset classes that you're invested in, all compliant with Ohio Revised Code Chapter 13535 and the county's approved investment policy, primarily U.S. Treasuries and government agency securities. And then you have a few other asset classes that you're allowed to be in as well, like corporate bonds, commercial paper, municipal securities, et cetera. Moving on to the next page. This is where I stay in contact with the treasurer's office to discuss the overall cash flow of the county. So we have this graph here going back the last 4 years or so of the growth of the portfolio, one, as well as the cyclicality of your cash flows. So this looks at both the investment portfolio, the U.S. Bank portion on the bottom in the lighter green shade, and then the Star Ohio component in the darker blue shade on the top. You see kind of a flow of outliers in there, which are the temporary periods of property tax collections where the treasurer's office will take in all the property tax receipts, hold them for a month or so until the auditor makes final settlement, and then the funds go back out to the local subdivisions. So you temporarily have, especially these last couple of years, have had a few months of the year where you have been able to generate some good income from Star Ohio sitting on those balances for a month or so. But I'll focus more on the underlying part of that, the continued growth of the investment portfolio underneath that. And so after you have those property tax settlements, we recalibrate, see what kind of excess balances you have and determine if it's appropriate to move any more into the investment portfolio. I like your distribution where you are right now. That 22 million, I think, is actually even down to about 17 today. So I don't really recommend at this time moving much more into the portfolio. I think we've sort of stabilized on that natural growth of the investment portfolio, but that's what we'll always keep an eye on to make sure that you have enough cash on hand to pay the bills, but that you don't have too much cash on hand, especially as we're in this market where the Fed is likely to continue moving short-term rates lower. So to the extent you can, keeping what you have in excess into the market. Then Commissioner, the last page on this, focusing on the investment income. And what I've looked at here is recap the last couple of years to show the growth in this environment as the county's been able to reinvest into this higher market, take advantage of where rates have been for the last couple of years, and then translate that to what this means going forward. So this portion of investment income that you're looking at is just from the U.S. Bank securities portion. This does not include the additional income from Star Ohio or any other bank sources that the treasurer has. This is just from what we're managing in the main core investment portfolio. Going back to 2023, when cash basis realized income was about $1.5 million, that shot up in 2024 to over $3 million as you started to realize these higher coupons that you were buying in the market. This year, where so far through the first 8 months of the year, you can see just under 2 million realized, still to be realized in the last 4 months of the year is about another 1.3 million. So when you're talking about this income that you've earned to date overall, that's a number that you can add on to that. Then looking into next year, 26, 27, and even into 28, those numbers, 3.6 million, 3.7 million, and then even almost 3 million in 2028 are essentially what's locked in at this point. The bonds you currently own, when they're going to pay and how much they're going to pay you. That does not assume any reinvestment yet at this point. So that's if you did nothing else. If every maturity came out and you spent it or put it in some sort of cash account, this portfolio would still generate that over the next couple of years. Realistically, though, you're going to be reinvesting other maturities that continue to come out of the portfolio.
Conservatively speaking, I think we'll be at about 4.7, 4.8 for this year. Yay, nay?
Getting in that
I
ballpark.
mean, we ended last year a shade under 4.7, about 2.21% better. That's
What
conservative.
did you say the number was through August total?
7.
3.6. Yeah, might as well say 3.7.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you will. Because you'll have
Yeah.
a little bit of Star Ohio income on there as well. And so going forward, you will have additional, I think 26 will be higher than we're showing there. I think 27 will be even higher than that.
Greg, you getting all this?
It's real. Then the idea is just to be able to keep going into this market now so that in 28 and beyond, any decline, if we, I don't know if we will be for sure, but if we're in a lower interest rate environment by then, your portfolio remains pretty well insulated against that and would come down at a much slower pace than the rest of the market as far as your income. The one thing that will be a more immediate hit is that as the Fed is cutting short-term rates, the Star Ohio bounce that you've had on this income these last few years will start to decline more immediately. And so we want to try to make up for that with getting as much locked into the portfolio as we can as those short-term rates start to move lower. So you will start to see some decline there from that income, but right now it's still over 4% at this time, but that could change in the next several months if the Fed does keep cutting interest rates.
Well, and I plan on taking a look at our cash as we get toward the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have a new real estate tax collection. We'll see if we can move a little bit more down for you to invest. I think we did that last year.
Yeah, you did. And it's typical that counties near the end of the calendar year are draining. They have different departments that are trying to spend, meeting their budgets. And so we typically see a lot of the county. We worked with over 40 of the counties in Ohio, and a lot of them do drain some cash down at the end of the year. So as we get near the end of the year, we'll reassess and see what kind of flexibility you have there to keep adding potentially some more to the investments. But I think you're in a good spot right now and really built pretty well for these next several years.
Yep.
I won't go through it all, but I have included at the end of your packet, the detailed
I love that report.
investment report, which you may have noticed over the last couple of months is a little different.
A little different, but I still know where to find my my data points. I reviewed this.
We unveiled a new accounting and reporting system over the last few months. Does include an online investment portal for our clients to be able to go into to see the portfolio on a real-time daily basis. So the new reporting comes out of that system, but this does have all of the detail of all of your investments, recap of transactions, projections of future income, and so forth. So all of the details in there, and any specific questions, I'm glad to go over anything in that as well.
And it's a really secure portal that you have. It's so secure. I have trouble getting in and out of it sometimes.
We've heard some complaints about the multi-factor authentication to get into that portal.
Very secure.
But it is, yes, there's a lot of good information in there.
There is a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Amber can always expect to hear from me 5 or 6 days after the month. Hey, what got my report?
That's fine. And if you want your own access to it, we can get it.
That's easier to pester Amber.
Okay.
Yeah, believe me, you don't want your own.
I don't. It's just, yeah, I know.
It makes our system look, pretty big. So
No, this is knock on wood, good stuff.
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
I don't have any questions, Daryl.
And countries where got a little bit of money, Israel, is there other foreign?
We do. It actually should have matured, and now I don't have anything with them. The Israeli note,
I think it matures on October.
or maybe it's next.
I think.
Yeah,
October
you're right.
1st. Yeah. And then that's the only one that's in there, and that's gone then.
Currently, the bond rating has went down. I hadn't checked it last few days.
It still has an eligible rating from 2 of the agencies. Moody's, I think, has gone below single A. So it's the credit stance is, in my view, questionable right now, but.
And I think
It's still
it
eligible.
also still has a negative outlook. I think if the outlook turns positive, that would be a sign we could start thinking about it again. But with a negative outlook, I don't think that's wise right now.
But it is still eligible.
It is, yes. Barely.
Correct. Correct.
We appreciate the report and your summary of going over it was very helpful.
Good. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Craigie, any questions?
Or if you, I know there's a lot said here, but just.
There was a lot.
Just overall, just your, I guess, happiness with where the county
Well,
stands at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in a good position as the report showed you for at least the next 2 to 3 years. We're in a great position with the notes that we own. Cash is gonna be the where's that interest rate gonna go? We make a lot of money with Star Ohio right now. As that drops, it's gonna hurt us, and it'll drop quicker than what this was. So no, we're in great position.
you mentioned property tax collections, like, I'm sure we're behind a bit, and what's the process to try to get that coming in?
Well, as real estate collections begin, obviously we accumulate a lot of cash. There are advances that go to various entities around the county, which the county auditor will send those advances out once an entity asks for it. But most of that money stays with us until the settlement. And, we send bills out the end of January as an example, and the due date is usually in March, first week of March. Then settlement is more toward the end of March, 1st of April. So we've got a lot of cash that we deal with at that time. That cash goes to Star Ohio, which, as I say, that rate's been a good rate. And we make a lot of money on that. And then it goes. And then we do it again second half. So I'm got a lot of cash for two different times, throughout the year.
Hayden, any questions?
I guess related to numbers, but not necessarily including numbers, being a good stance, good position, what opportunities does that, I guess, say, afford the county as opposed to if the county wasn't in a good position, what does that kind of mean as far as just the operations of the county, or, what kind of things being in this position, what does that afford?
Yeah, it just affords, it's income. It's income for the county commissioners' budgets.
Or that they can
It's just,
allocate out.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than what it was a few years ago
Yeah,
when we weren't.
when your
making-
income's a few $1 million higher, that covers a lot of salaries and things like that, that the county has to pay on an ongoing basis, that frees up other money to do other things with, and.
Yeah,
So Hayden, to give you an idea, you know me, I'm always looking at it. Last year treasurer earnings on the revenue side made almost 10% of our revenue. Clearly, sales tax is the driver. We're around that 52, 53, 54%. But sales tax last year was interest earnings was our second highest revenue last year, which was important because I think we're not different than private employers, and governments are competing, and we're trying to retain. Our salary expenses have gone up substantially in the past 3 years. So you're right, that's helped us cover as expensive. Well, inflation, right? Everything's gone up.
it's way better now.
Health insurance has been a huge driver.
Yeah, I mean, it's way better now than what it was, many years ago when I think the worst year we had was about 400,000. Big difference between 400,000.
I mean, you're looking at 37 to 38% increase in health insurance over 4 years. I mean, so as you're right, it doesn't just cover salary expenses, it covers expenses. So,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
let's hope it remains high. So,
That's the idea, try to make it last as long as we can here. So take advantage of the environment that we've been able to be in for the last couple of years and make it last as long as we can. So I think the strategy is working for you. I think you're doing a very good job getting what you can in the portfolio and maximizing it without sort of getting over your skis. Also making sure that you have enough flow of liquidity to make sure that you always have enough cash to keep the county running. I think you're doing a good job.
oh.
That's liquidity and then yield. So we're focused on yield, but it's within the context of safety and liquidity first.
It's been a year or so ago, we talked about adjusting our
Policy.
our investment policy. I think we want to revisit that. There was a couple, nothing, these weren't big changes that you had. I can't remember.
No, if you want me to talk briefly on it, I will. I've been talking with Bart a little bit about potentially looking at the policy, which is a good idea to do every so often anyways. I think the main change that I would recommend making is for the eligible investments in the policy to simply refer to the Ohio Revised Code and not itemize out individual investments on it.
Makes sense to me. You won't have to change it as often, right?
But if there are any changes in code, your policy automatically updates with it. The one thing right now where your policy is more restrictive primarily is on corporate bonds. You're limited to 2 years rather than 3 years, and AA credits rather than single A credits. So you could be able to open up your investing world into corporate bonds a little bit more if we made that change to go to just follow Ohio Revised Code. So that's something I would recommend doing.
Okay, makes sense. Any other questions?
Go ahead. Well, I'll do it real quick. If he sends me a policy, have a meeting, we can take a look at it.
You can schedule a meeting.
Just gonna spell your name first and last, title and company. One more time.
Jim McCourt, JIMMCCOURT. Advisory Services with Meter Public Funds.
Hayden? Engaged citizens?
Good.
Okay, well, thank you again. Very informative, Jim.
You need a motion to accept part of.
Motion to accept Bart's report and adjourn investment advisory
I
committee.
make that motion.
I'll second.
Favor,
Aye.
Art. That too.
So you go.
Okay.
Okay, we will adjourn the investment advisory committee. Come back into the commissioners' regularly scheduled meeting and recess for 5 minutes, and we come back at 10:30 with our building code.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Talk later.
Yeah.
Okay, we are back in session, joined by our building codes team. At this time, we are going to recess our regular meeting. Now we're gonna open a public hearing as required by law for our building code fees. Mr. Rister, Mr. Keller, who wants it?
Commissioner, thank you. Gentlemen, reason for our public hearing this morning, in conversation with Commissioner Mears and working with Andrew, looking at our budget scenario, overall operation of the department and our fee schedule, our fee structure. We did some research into our current fee schedule, researching where other departments are going. And we felt that there was a need to consider some fee adjustments for our department. The Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Administrative Code, in which our department operates under, and the county operates as a local building department, gives the authority to set fees strictly to the appointing authority, which is the Board of Commissioners. There's actually only one fee that we have that is actually in the that's in the building code, which is the request for an extension of approvals or inspections, which is set at $100. Any of those other fees that we collect as part of doing business, performing our operations, are the approval authority of the board. So the reason for our hearing today is to consider those adjustments to our fee schedule. We effectively have three different fee schedules. We have one for residential approvals. We have a commercial fee schedule that applies to the commercial projects. Commercial projects typically have additional staff time that's paid at a higher rate than residential, more inspections. So there's a little bit higher fee schedule associated with the commercial schedule. And then we have a commercial schedule for the jurisdictions we contract with in Crawford County and also the village of Cary and Wyandotte County. Per those contracts for enforcement, there's a $25 per scope per application fee that's tacked on to basically cover gas and mileage outside of the county for us to perform those services. So that's why we have that third fee schedule that reflects those additional fees for the outside counties. Overall, we consolidated some of the fees. We had some separate roofing fees. We had some separate solar fees that were effectively generating the same revenue. So we pulled those out and clarified those with what we would call a policy clarification or a schedule clarification under the bullet points at the bottom of the schedule. It kind of keeps the fee schedule a little cleaner, a little easier to understand, a little bit to read. Dealing with the people that do business with our office, sometimes those would get confusing to them as far as, do they have to pay both fees? Do they have to pay one fee? So we felt that the language that we provided cleaned things up and streamlines it just a little bit. In all the research that we've done through the other jurisdictions, again, our last fees update where the fees were even touched was in 2019. There was a good size, that was in August of 2019. There was a good sized fee adjustment also made in 2017 as well. So about a 2-year period. Now we're running on about a 6-year gap in between fee schedules as to when the last time fees were touched. Obviously we've got inflation that has came into there. The other
the other factor that we took into consideration is we've got a lot less territory that we cover now. Again, with the large amount of our budget that goes to staffing, that we have some attrition through staffing that we've made up. The mileage and the gas expenses are not quite there. They don't make up that significant of a budget, percentage. That the less mileage we've spent in Huron County, Seneca County, and the rest of Wyandotte County. That's a relatively small decrease in expense there. So looking at where we're at, we've got all of our fees that we've looked at, through all the scopes of work, all the miscellaneous fees. We've made some revenue projections, based on last year's units, based on number of applications, number of square footage, number of lump sum projects that we take in where we calculate fees on a lump sum basis. Looking at the other departments, a lot of these other departments, have made fee increases, as short as a period of last year to 3 to 4 years out. I think we only have one other department that hasn't touched fees in about 10 years, but that was Licking County. Licking County is experiencing a phenomenal period of growth, where they've got the square footage, they've got the number of projects that they can keep up at their current fee schedule that they had. Again, we didn't dive into all the operations of the other departments. We do look from a high level, and kind of compare some policies, to see where things may differ. But without getting into the weeds on all those individual policy differences, it's a little bit different for each department. But the fee schedule that we've got proposed mostly aligns with that of the state of Ohio on the commercial side. Looking at the other departments, we felt that was a good number to align with. As we sit here and we talk about, using the state's current fee schedule, the state actually is going through a fees adjustment of themselves. Their fees were last adjusted in 2019. And they're going through fee schedule adjustments. They've actually already submitted theirs through their rules amendment process. They've had their hearings. They just have not set an effect. They have not had their final hearing and have not set their effective date. But our proposal is to go with the state's current fee schedule. On the commercial side, using last year's 2024 numbers, we're looking at about an $88,000 increase in revenue. And residential, the state does not have a residential fee schedule, so we tried to take a good cross-section of what we have locally here, and some other comparable counties, and we've got about an $80,000 increase in revenue projected. So I can go through the fees, line by line if you'd like.
We don't need.
The one significant increase that I would point out, and I think the board in the past had a lot of feedback from fire alarm contractors. The state doesn't mandate how these fees are structured or scheduled, whether you do, by square footage, lump sum. Some people do it based on construction cost. A lot of variables that go into construction costs that, depending on who's performing the work, that can skew those numbers, and it can be really subjective. We've always used square footage and lump sum because it's pretty, regardless of who builds it, regardless of who designs it or what materials you build it out of, it's the same square footage. So that's why we've always used that square footage, as do a lot of other departments that way. There's very few that use construction cost, but the fire alarm permit fees, we changed from a square footage basis to a device basis. I know that the board has had some feedback and some conversation with the fire alarm contractors in the past. We always did it based on square footage. Again, not saying it was the right answer, but that's the way it was always done. So we dove back into that a little deeper. Talking to some of the fire alarm contractors that had some serious concern with larger projects. And we based our new fee calculations on a device basis. Using our 2024 numbers, if we would look at our old 2024 square footage basis, if we went back and based that on devices, on an overall revenue of just the fire alarm square footage fees, we had about $15,500. We'd lose about $7,500 in revenue. But that device basis is probably a more appropriate way to calculate the fire alarm permit fees. And there are other jurisdictions, including the state, that do it that way. So that's one significant change that we'll see.
And what you're looking at raising this is the state fees that they are currently have, not the state fees that are gonna be future.
That's correct.
And then
Correct.
I'm not sure when we're gonna vote on this or anything, but in the
Do
meantime,
we need to have another public hearing?
Yes.
One more, right? That's what we thought.
The,
so maybe at the next public hearing, hand us a sheet that says, here's what we have been paying or charging and what the new fees could be.
I do have that. I do have that as a spreadsheet. It's a very wide spreadsheet because we laid it, and we sent that down previously. I can give that to you in a little more I can do that in a little more readable format.
Okay, Hayden, any questions?
I think most of my questions were answered the
Right.
previous time before the next public hearing or before this public hearing, so I think good.
One note of clarification, you asked about public hearings. So we have per
For the
revised code requirement,
more.
we have one more public hearing.
Mhm.
And the fees can be modified. What we presented can be modified during the hearings.
I don't think that's what we're gonna do.
Just, it's
We've gone to the public with what this is what they're gonna be. And I think we stick to that.
after the hearing, the board would vote to adopt
Right.
the fee schedules.
Yep.
And then the fee schedules can take effect no sooner than 30 calendar days after the adoption.
My recommendation would be first of the year. That aligns with budgeting and just also gives residents time to plan accordingly.
The other thing that we always recommend when we do the fee schedules too is that these apply to new applications received. So we got people in the pipeline
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Can't anyway, so.
then hypothetically, we do new applications received on or after January 1,
Yep.
26.
Perfect. Okay, we will adjourn the public hearing, public hearing number one, excuse me. Steve, let's set public hearing number two.
Already set for next Tuesday.
Perfect. I haven't seen the agenda yet, so that. Okay. We'll come back into regular session here for the commissioners. Recess at 10:44.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we recessing?
questions on it.
Need to rescind our previous adjournment. We had the one outstanding item of the electrical aggregation contract. If any residents go back in time and read, that is very time sensitive for rate purposes. So at this time, I'll ask for motion that we approve the electrical aggregation contract.
I will make I think we should make it that we'll give Andrew, after he reads it,
Okay.
allow him to sign.
I was under the presumption, I don't want to assume anything, that we were all good and had already pre-read it. Now that I'm putting that on Andrew.
Send it in, we're still waiting on a price.
Okay.
We're still waiting on the updated price. The language has been approved by the prosecutor. So it's up to you. Thought was,
We'll go with Daryl and allow Andrew to approve as as we previously given that authority.
And obviously Andrew is bright enough, if it's ridiculous,
Right.
he won't be signing it.
It's either.
The taxpayers have a lot of faith in you and there's the media right there watching. They're public's watchdog.
Unfortunately, we know it's an increase, so
Yeah, I know.
it's either that or recess. We just don't want to approve it yet.
Let's just allow Andrew the authority. So Daryl's made the motion. I'll second it.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Bank.
Yes.
Okay, now we will adjourn at 10:58.
Yeah, I'm just hearing an increase and I'm hearing Andrew signed it, you know, so.
Don't blame him. Don't blame him.
Yeah.
We'll blame the county administrator.
They're gonna say, well, he doesn't live in our town. I know, right?
And he said that the list of the rates and what they're going up to are kind of in a not easily digestible format for people right now, right? In that spreadsheet?
Well, the price will be locked into the contract.
No, I'm
No.
going back to building, Tony,
Brief.
because I might wait.
40 has it.
Okay.
Have fun with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he brings something more digestible, I'll just do that next time.
He'll have it.
Well, he said.
It will be no less relevant next week than it is. today.
Right.
So and he'll have
It's
it.
not gonna happen till January, so.
Right. I can write about them, you know, that it's happening and tell people if they have an issue, they can come talk, but I was just saying, you know, someone might be like, well, if you're saying they're going up, but you didn't tell me what, well, I'll put that.
Why don't you get a hold of Risser and he can.
I will. But that's what I meant by saying, if he was saying that he was gonna make it a little more easier to read by next time, then we'll see. Yeah. All right.
Mr. won't be at a loss for words. He's good.
Yeah, he is. All right.
See you, Hayden.
See you guys. Bye. Have a good one.
We talked briefly.
Um,